Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to today's webinar, Roadmap to Achieving ISO 26262 Certification. Your presenters today are Brian Kozumblick and Dr. Juan Pimentel. Brian is a Functional Safety Senior Systems Manager with experience in ISO 26262 Parts 2 and 3. He has over 40 years of engineering experience, including leadership positions at major EOMs and Tier 1s. An AFSP certificate from TÜVSAR, BSME from Michigan State University, and statistical master's courses at Oakland University. His priorities include ensuring safe, reliable, quality products for automotive consumers. Juan is a principal cybersecurity consultant at Omnex and a member of the U.S. Technical Advisory Group for ISO 21448. He has extensive experience in engineering, safety, and cybersecurity. As an author of multiple papers on automotive safety and security, he has developed and conducted training courses on protecting industrial systems. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, I kindly ask that you type them in the chat box and we will address as many as we can at the end of the webinar. Now, without further ado, please welcome Brian and Juan.
Good morning. Brian Kozumblick here. Thank you for the introduction, Kelsey. I'll go ahead and lead off here. I'll share my screen and get started with kind of the introductory slides that we're going to cover before Dr. Juan gets on. So I'm going to take over sharing. Okay. Kelsey, do you see my screen?
I do.
Okay, good.
Yes, I do.
Okay, so we're in presenter mode, so I'll go from here. All right. So this is a short introduction I'll give before Dr. Juan presents the detail, but I'm going to give this overview talk and kind of lead into the safe, secure, sustained registrar that we're offering at Omnex. So definitely focused on the future. And basically, the key point in the next few slides I'm going to give you is that we are an independent certification body with much deep experience in the ISO 26262 functional safety standard. So that's what you're going to see in the next few slides. A little bit of background first about Omnex, the parent company. Omnex was founded in Ann Arbor, Michigan, near Detroit, the world's automotive capital, and has always been a very strong automotive focus inside of Omnex. They've been on the writing committee of the following EV and automotive standards, like the one I just mentioned, the ISO 26262, the cybersecurity standard, the 21434, and the SAEJ 3061. And also the SOTIF standard, which is a relatively new standard, the ISO 21448. This is somewhat related, of course, to the ISO functional safety standard, but it is a separate standard, and you'll see why as I go through some of the examples in the discussion here. Safety of the intended function is what SOTIF stands for. So Omnex has provided functional safety management systems training and services since 2009. And making Omnex one of the oldest providers of functional safety. And that came out just before the first edition standard came out. So Omnex was involved actually with the first edition. We're now working on a third edition to be published here in several years. So Omnex is involved with that standard all the way through the first edition, the second, and now the third edition. We have broad services to the automotive and electronics industry since 1986 and the semiconductor industry since 1998. And we've helped many suppliers and OEMs all the way from sheet metal components to semiconductor chips and software. So you'll see the breadth of the company here as I go through the next couple of slides. Some more information on Omnex. You know, we work with leading OEMs on the new product development and supplier development initiatives. And we've implemented management systems in new product development for thousands of organizations in the automotive, electronics, and semiconductor industry. So we support global initiatives. You'll see on the next couple of slides the global footprint that Omnex has. We've implemented, audited, and developed functional safety work products for an entire electronic e-vehicle, EV vehicle, multiple battery management systems, steering systems, which of course are ASO-D systems in most cases. So we've gone all the way from QM to ASO-D, the most stringent ISO standard for functional safety. We've worked on autonomous vehicles, semiconductor devices, and much work with software. We've conducted case reviews for functional safety and cybersecurity, certifying your product to these standards, which include Automotive SPICE and SOTIF. And we've co-authored many core tools and also worked inside the supply chain very deeply. So a lot of good background on Omnex, our parent company there. So in terms of worldwide operations, this slide is supposed to come up. There it is. You can see the footprint of the world there. We've worked very deep in the Americas and North America. We're across Germany, Eastern Europe, the Asia Pacific, China. We got 4 offices in
Excuse me, Ryan,
Southeast Asia.
we're not seeing your slides. We
Oh.
only see the first one.
Oh, I should be advancing. It should be on slide number 4.
Can you stop sharing and reshare for a minute, please?
Okay, sorry. I'm glad you spoke up. Let me hit share again. Screen 2. There we go. How about that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, looks good.
Let me back up. So the other slides I showed were just basically the word slides, which showed Omnex in the automotive space. So I think the key slide we're going to talk about is this next one, worldwide operations. That's the one I want to go back to. We've got over 700 employees at Omnex, 26 different nationalities working in over 30 countries. And as I said before you saw the slide on the screen, you know, in North America, Europe, Asia Pacific, we got 4 offices in China and many offices in Southeast Asia, as you can see here. So quite a global company, and it's very, very integrated. You know, I've met many of the leaders across Omnex in the various global regions, and everybody works together. And this new effort with Safe, Secure, Sustain is really going to be a huge emphasis in our certification that we can offer. Okay, let's go to the next slide. This is background it's important to see before we launch into Safe, Secure, Sustain. The Omnex 7 levers, as it's called, showcases the automotive EV/AV levers, if you will, or spaces. The big one being IATF 16949, the 2016 version. That's your quality standard. Omnex has been very involved with that, the ISO 9001, the IATF 16949, and some of the other quality standards. So that kind of forms the basis for the levers that I'll talk about next. We've already mentioned the ISO standard 26262. That starts with the hazard analysis, a risk assessment, stating your safety goals and your safety requirements, and using the system V, which many of you should be familiar with, flowing down on the left side of the V, then on up through the right side to the verification end. So Omnex has been involved with this, as I mentioned earlier, since the inception of the first edition, way back since 2009. So it's going on 15 years. Automotive SPICE is very important for those working in the software space. We'll touch on that a little bit later. Omnex has been involved with that. Supply chain practices. A lot of the new EV and AV standards are driving much more rigor with the supply chain. Myself, having worked for tier 1s in the past, I can see that through Omnex's viewpoint and lens very strongly. SOTIF, safety of the intended function. That's could be part of ISO 26262, and it is, but it is a separate standard, as I mentioned earlier, and it needs to remain separate. That's things like you'll see out there, like a Waymo vehicle, maybe going through a traffic light, not knowing where to go, left turn, right. That's safety of the intended function. So what do the automaker or the OEM or the tier 1 intend that function to do in the software space versus what actually happens in the real world? There's a whole group of people meeting on that, and Dr. Pimentel is involved with that group as well. Cybersecurity, the name speaks for itself, the SAE 3061 and the ISO 21434. Dr. Juan will talk about this in his slides. That's a huge area for automobile and tier 1s to be very concerned about. And then Agile APQP, the advanced product quality planning, It's really important. Most of our OEMs are using Agile software. And if you're part of an OEM or a tier one, you're very familiar, should be, with Agile. All right. Want to showcase e-mobility training services also that Omnex offers. A lot of training in the ISO 26262 area in functional safety, all the way from detailed safety training for engineers and also executive training. So the executives can understand, what part 3 is a safety concept, or part 2, management of functional safety. There's part 4, hardware analysis. Those are on the System V when you go through the ISO standard, and that'll be talked about a little bit later. But those are all areas that need to have comprehensive understanding when you have an organization, so they all understand and can read from the same playbook, if you will, from the ISO 26262. The hazard analysis risk assessment is very important. DFMEAs are very strong at Omnex. They've got a core group of DFMEA trainers, and they've been involved in DFMEA and the various standards at AIG for quite a while. Fault tree analysis and application training. We've got experts that have done training on fault tree, and we continue to do that. And then understanding automotive SPICE. PAM 4.0 is what it's called, the latest edition of that. INTAX certified provisional assessor training, and then writing effective requirements and test cases for ASPICE. And I got to speak kind of off the cuff for this one. This is so important. I see it in so many organizations I've worked in. If you don't have effective requirements written down, it's kind of the foundation for the rest of your work in functional safety and also in cybersecurity and ASPICE. You've got to have effective requirements, and Omnex has done an excellent job in this area as well. Okay, moving on to slide 7. Omnex has staff that they can provide and provided functional safety and ASPICE and cybersecurity. And the deep experience they've had working in ISO 26262, like I mentioned, since 2009, they've worked for many OEMs and tier ones. They've got a diverse group of experts that are really going to make the certification process much easier for you in your audits and assessments, as I'll talk about in the next coming slides. Okay. All right. I do want to showcase this before we get into some of the details on audits and assessments. Omnex has what's called EW, IMS, QMS, enterprise-wide quality and integrated management systems, from new product development to advanced product quality planning, the NPD, AP, QP platform, the EV/AV platform. We're integrated with supplier quality management, and also integrating systems with the health management systems too, quality and health management safety systems. So I won't read the slide. You'll get the deck later, but you can see some of the key points here. We're involved heavily in risk reduction, KPI management, op excellence, mentioned the quality planning, and e-mobility vehicle design. So a lot there, a lot of experience inside of Omnex that will benefit the safe, secure, sustain domain, and I'll jump into that next because that's really the core of what we want to talk about for the remainder of the hour. Omnex Safe, Secure, Sustain. It's in quotes because that's a new division that Omnex is launching. And I've said before several times that certification has been a large part of Omnex since 2010, so for 14 years. But the key point on this slide is to make the point that Omnex Safe, Secure, Sustain, and we call it S3 in-house. It's an independent certification body. So they're working with ANAB, the International or National Accreditation Board, and they'll provide certifications in functional safety, automotive cybersecurity, including carbon neutrality, water, and sustainability. And that's what the sustain part is of this three-word safe, secure, sustain. I'm really excited about this because I've worked in water quality in the past and sustainability. I've really got a passion for this, and I know other people at Omnex do too, as we make sure our world and the global footprint we work in keeps sustainability in the forefront. So I'm very excited to be working in this area. Let's talk about third-party certification. It really means that an independent organization has reviewed your process or product development and is independently determined that the final product complies with specific standards for safety, security, and quality. So yes, okay, why do companies seek certification? It's really those 3 bullet points: to demonstrate compliance with national, international standards or regulations like ANAB, to demonstrate independent audits or assessments of their commitment to safety, security, and quality. It also increases your credibility and acceptance with customers and regulators. The third-party certification is like a badge you get if you're an OEM or a tier 1. You've got to have that to be able to do business in some cases with other parts or other OEMs or other tier 1s in sub-suppliers. It's very critical that you seek third-party certification. All right. So a little more about safe, secure, sustain. We're going to provide 30 third-party certifications. And as I've mentioned before, the functional safety standard, the cybersecurity standard, and the SOTIF standard, and also automotive SPICE. So we're going to conduct verification and validation also of your organization's greenhouse gas statements and monitor your carbon neutrality claims according to those standards as you see here, the 14064 all through the 14068. So our real mission, if you will, is to help the world and organizations transition to a net zero future characterized by healthy, safe, environmentally friendly global economies. So working on safe and secure electric and autonomous vehicles, net zero carbon plans and executions of such, and greenhouse gases and sustainable practices for adoption. Okay, our ANAB has been submitted already, and we have an accreditation that's forthcoming. And we'll be able to answer your questions at the end of the presentation as Dr. Pimentel will have more details on that as well. Okay, audits, assessments, and certifications. This is really the core of what we wanted to talk to you about. So in cybersecurity, we've got 3 main pillars that we have expertise in, and we'll provide cybersecurity system audits, assessments, and of course, personnel training. The main focus of this talk is on audits and assessments. That's the main focus of what we're going to talk about here. Okay, specifically, just so you know the background of an audit is an examination of a process to determine the extent to which the process objectives are achieved in an organization. Whereas an assessment goes a little step further. An assessment is a judgment of, this case, the cybersecurity of the items or components that you're looking at. It's a project level assessment. So an audit tends to look at the process or the processes that an OEM or tier 1 will use. An assessment is tied to a project level, you know, a particular, let's say, EV/AV product that they're going to launch. So you do an assessment of that product. That's the parallel and the contrast between an audit and an assessment. Also, on functional safety and SOTIF, we offer the same. We offer functional safety management audits, and we offer product assessments and, of course, personnel trainings. The main focus of this talk is on audits and assessments through certification. And in similar on functional safety, an audit is an examination of your implemented processes in that OEM or tier 1, or an assessment is the judgment or examination of the characteristics of the item or element that you're achieving the ISO standards, like Part 4, systems engineering, Part 5, hardware development, Part 6, software development. So an assessment will assess and judge how you've met the standards for Part 4, Part 5, and Part 6, for an example. So it's much deeper. Okay, same with automotive SPICE. We'll provide certifications for formal assessments in ASPICE and also for personnel trainings that have already been offered. And the acronym for ASPICE, it's a little clumsy, but it's actually Automotive Software Process Improvement and Capability Determination. Automotive Software Process Improvement and Capability Determination. It's an industry standard guideline. Omnex has had deep experience. In fact, they've been on the writing committee for this ASPICE since its formulation years ago. So we've had personnel involved with this for many, many years. Okay, and just to wrap up before Dr. Pimentel talks, just an overview of the certification process that we offer. You know, submitting an application form, the proposal. There's a contract agreement with the OEM and tier 1, and usually there's a pre-assessment, which we recommend. That's optional, but it's recommended. then a stage 1 audit, a stage 2 audit, managing corrective actions and certification. And of course, inside of here, you would have an assessment that would be added to this before the managing of corrective action. So this is just a very high level overview with our certificate that you can see here from ANAB with our application submitted. So at this point in time, I'm going to transition to Dr. Pimentel, and I'll stop sharing, and he will share the rest of the slides and go through the detail there. So thank you, Doctor. You're on mute, Dr. Juan.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it. Let me take a few seconds to share my screen and get everything ready. And you let me know if you'll see my screen, okay?
There, we see it.
Okay, great. Do you see one or two screens?
Well, we see the big screen, then we see another one that says webinar outlined.
Oh, okay. So hold on, let me swap it then. Okay, there you go. How about now?
Very good. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, so this is a continuation to what Ryan just mentioned, and I'll be talking about ISO 26262 in terms of the audits and the assessments as it relates to the certification. This will be a bit more technical, and the really focus of this presentation is to help our customers, to help as a customer, you as a customer, how to get ready for this certification. Okay, so that's the emphasis. The outline of my particular presentation is to review again why do companies seek certification. I'll talk about the certification options that we have available for you, and concentrate on part 2 of ISO 26262 because this is the part that talks about audits and certifications of the entire standard. Okay, so let me just be clear on one thing. The audits and certification is about the entire standard. What's in part 2 is the explanation of the management aspects to do that. Okay. One of the most important aspects that we will see is called confirmation measures, and then confirmation reviews, the audit and the assessment. And then I'll go over again the certification process in a bit more detailed fashion. And again, the focus is on helping you as our customers, how to get ready, how to prepare for these certifications. And the way that I presented this getting ready is from the viewpoint of customer documentation. In other words, there's a lot of documents that customers need to have ready before you seek certification, and I will clarify that. And there are basically two categories of that. You have overall safety management, which is mostly the audit aspect, and then you have the project-dependent management, which is about the assessment aspect in more technical terms using ISO 26262 terminology. And then I'll have some conclusions and a summary. This slide was already mentioned, just to say that companies are very interested in this third-party certification. Omnex and S3 in particular will be your third-party certifier. So companies, we envision that companies come to Omnex, to S3 in particular, to certify either their management system for 26262 or their project, as Brian mentioned briefly earlier. Again, this is something that Brian already talked about, but just to complement, we're really talking about here ISO 26262. So in ISO 26262, we have what it's called the auditing, the processes, and also doing an assessment of the product. Now, in this particular webinar, I will be referring to product and project to be the same thing, okay? And that's the way the structure in the standard, by the way. They talk about a project involving a product. And then, of course, there is also some certification involving trainings, but this particular webinar is not addressing that particular topic. All right. To begin with, these are the two major areas that we offer certification, or companies that want certification. The first one is about the overall functional safety management system, okay? And that's called an audit. So we audit all of your processes for this overall safety management system so that your projects, we're talking about several projects in this case, will meet the guidelines of ISO 26262 and the requirements. So that's the first type of certification that you can get. The second one is about an assessment. And this is project-oriented or product-oriented, as I mentioned before. Okay. And then we take a look at, and also Brian mentioned that this is basically an evaluation that we make with the purpose of determining whether or not your project or your product meets the requirements for being safe according to 26262. A big component of that is the so-called functional safety case, which is turning out to be one of the most important work products of ISO 26262. Just very briefly, this is not intended to cover all the standard, of course, but 26262 has many parts, 11 in particular that is noted here. And the main part that we're concentrating is really part 2. All of the other parts are important, obviously, as you move along in your project, except that part 2 is the part that deals with the management aspects about all of the remaining parts, if you will. So all of the other parts, of course, have to do with the concept phase, the hardware development, the software development in part 6, the software hardware interface, the post-development phases in part 7, supporting processes in part 8, ASIL-oriented analysis in part 9, some additional guidelines on part 10, and semiconductors in part 11, and motorcycles, which is a separate component for some of our customers. So again, as you could see, this standard is very broad, covers a lot of stuff. It's a complete standard, but we'll be concentrating on part 2, which has to do with the management aspects of all the remaining parts. We're not saying that when you come to certification, all parts 3 through 12 are not important. Yes, they are, except that in part 2, we talk about the management aspects. And this is what it's noted here. There are 3 components of these management aspects. On the left side, you have the overall safety management. And this is what the audits are all about. You're talking about things like auditings about issues unrelated to specific projects. That means that very generic. It's not specific to one project. Allocation of safety responsibilities, safety culture, training and qualification. So these are just some of the topics in this section of overall safety management. During development, you build up your case, if you will, so that you could claim that your product or process is safe. And this is the assessment portion. So some of the topics here are the definition of the persons and responsibilities for the project, developing the safety plan, which is very important, verification, validation plans, and assessments. And on the right side, you have other management activities, but this is done after the start of production. So the certification is done only on the first 2 aspects, not on the third one, because that is ongoing. That's a separate thing. All right. Let's talk about confirmation measures, which is a critical aspect in Part 2, Clause 6, and primarily for the assessment portion. So the reason for this being important is that product certifications will rely a great deal on these confirmation measures and other things, of course, but confirmation measures is a big part of your certification for your product or project. There are basically three types according to the standard or measure of measures: the confirmation reviews, the functional safety audit, and the functional safety assessment. Okay. The confirmation reviews is about examining a whole bunch of work products, and this is obviously detailed in the standard. And then we need to examine those and review very carefully all of these work products that is in scope for your project. The audit is an implementation of an implemented process to meet the goals of the standard 26262. And actually, it's not just one process, but it's really a bunch of processes. And the assessment is an examination of the achieved functional safety of your item or your product, of your design already. So like Brian mentioned, this is a judgment call, okay? We have to make a judgment at the end of the day whether or not your project or product or item has achieved functional safety. Okay. In this table, we provide additional clarification and distinction as to what's meant by a confirmation review, the functional safety audit, and the functional safety assessment. Recall that these three are the main components of the measures for functional safety, okay? And we have this distinction between them in various categories. The first row is about the outcome or result. The second one is what is the object or subject of the evaluation. The third one is about who is responsible. The timing on the next row. And lastly, the scope and depth of the particular measure. So in terms of the first one, the result, the confirmation review, the outcome of that is we issue reports. Maybe 10, 15, however many, of these reviews are in scope for your project. In case of the audit, there is also an audit report. The report will talk about auditing the various processes in your organization. And in terms of the assessment, we issue a report with a final judgment. The final judgment basically says your product meets or is safe or it's not safe. The subject, in terms of the reviews, we review work products. Okay. In terms of the audit, we audit implementation of processes. So this is all about processes in the organization required to achieve functional safety. And on the assessment, the object or subject is basically what is described in the item definition. In other words, it's the whole product, but in 26262, when you take a look at the item definition, this is the section where you actually define exactly what you mean by your product. So we stick to that portion. In terms of responsibility of the persons is to evaluate the compliance of the work products with the corresponding requirements of 26262. 26262 has many requirements, as you know, so all we do is basically verify the compliance to each and every requirement. In terms of the audit, we evaluate the implementation of the processes. And in terms of the assessment, we evaluate the achieved functional safety. The timing is that in terms of the confirmation review, is about the completion of the corresponding activity, obviously. As soon as that activity is done, we need to have a confirmation review. In terms of the audit, is actually during the implementation of the required processes. And the assessment is done progressively or incrementally during the development. It's not something that you just do at the end of the project and very hurriedly try to I guess, explain why your product is safe. So you have to do this progressively. The doing progressively, actually, we're talking about is the documentation, of everything you do. The scope and depth of the review is related to the actual activity according to the safety plan. In terms of the audit, it's actually the implementation of the processes against the definition of the activities referenced in the safety plan. So as you could see here, there's a big correlation to the safety plan, which is very important to keep in mind. And for the assessment, the scope and depth is about the work products required to achieve safety. That's the main thing. Okay, in terms of the confirmation measures, we have an additional piece of information here related to the degree of independence of the evaluation, which is very important. So for the independence, we have categories depending upon the AC level, QM, quality management, ACIL A, ACIL B, and ACIL C and D. And for each one, the degree of independence is called I0, I1, I2, and I3. The next slide will explain what that means. But here, we basically say that, as you could see, we have confirmation measures, which are three: the review, the functional safety audit, and assessment. Here, we're only showing a few of the confirmation reviews. This list is incomplete. However, we're probably talking about the most important ones. The standard has a table with all the possible confirmation reviews that may be in scope for your project that you can refer to it. But this is probably the main ones, okay? So the way to read this table is that, let's say you're talking about the technical safety concept, which is very important. It says that, for instance, if you have a project with ACIL D, that means that the degree of independence has to be I2. And I'll explain what I2 is in the next slide. In case of the safety audit, it's an I3. And likewise for functional safety, okay? The independence of the review applies in the following fashion, okay? Basically, I0 through I3. I3 is the most stringent one. And in I0 means that the confirmation measure should be performed. However, the measure, if it's performed, it shall be performed by a different person. In I1, it means that it is performed, whereas in I0, sorry, it's optional. But in one, when it's actually definitive, it's performed, it shall be done by a different person. In I2, it should be done by a different person, however, not reporting to the same superior. In other words, it would be from a different team, from a different group. And I3 shall be from a different department or a different company. Okay, that's the most stringent one. So that's the degree of independence of the confirmation reviews. Okay, let's also review a bit more what we meant by audit. So we're talking about auditing management systems for functional safety. So this is the functional safety audit is really optional. It is required for a product that it's ACIL D or C, and it's optional for B, and it's not required for ACIL A. So in this particular case, then one or more person shall be appointed to carry out this particular audit. And at the end of the audit, the report shall be provided, okay? So this audit is part of the assessment, by the way. And I think that was clear right here, okay? The audit and the assessment and the confirmation reviews are part of the confirmation measures, which, goes with the assessment. Now, the functional safety assessment shall be carried similarly to the audit for ACIL C and D and optionally for B. there's going to be a manager that is responsible for planning the safety assessment. And the agenda shall be prepared for performing the safety assessment by this manager. Now, one or more persons shall be appointed to carry out this particular assessment. And the scope of the assessment will include a bunch of things. First of all, the work products that are listed in the safety plan, the processes required for the functional safety. So as you could see, then the audit is a prerequisite for the functional safety assessment. The assessment is actually not repeating the auditing portion, but it says that it is a required document or activity done before the assessment. And lastly, we need to review the appropriateness and the effectiveness of the safety measures to achieve functional safety. So additional considerations for this assessment is the following: the planning of the other confirmation measures. Remember that confirmation measures are confirmation reviews, the audit, and the assessment itself, but it says the others are talking about it says other measures. So we're talking about only the functional safety audit and the confirmation reviews. Now, the result of these reviews and the functional safety audits is an important consideration for the assessment. And this is what we meant that by the fact that to do the assessment, prior to the assessment, you need to have the audits, the functional safety audits, and the confirmation reviews. Now, the recommendations resulting from the previous safety assessment is important, but it's if applicable. So this applies in the situation where you may have a company or organization that has several products, and maybe they have already done assessments for product A, B, and C, and currently you're working with a product D, let's say. So that's the idea here. The report then shall include a recommendation for the acceptance, conditional acceptance, or rejection. So as Brian pointed out, this is, a decision that is made by the assessment party, okay, whether or not the product or the project meets or is safe, okay. So either you accept it, conditional accept it, or reject it. And of course, the report about the confirmation measures is the report of all the reviews that has been made, okay. And this is also part of the project-dependent safety management, which is in Part 2, Clause 6. In terms of the certification process that Brian talked about, okay, these are the high-level steps of the process itself. And as you could see, note that you have, for the audit, you have two stages here. You have stage 1 and you have stage 2. And the reason for that is that in stage 1, we expect that the customer has all of the documents ready for the assessor or for the auditor in this case. So at this point, in fact, the next few slides will help you clarifying what we expect for this stage 1 audit in terms of the documents, the documentation that I need to have, okay? In stage 2, we go to the customer facilities and actually talk to the people involved for an interview or ask questions or show us more evidence. But this is from the viewpoint of person to person. So in audit, stage 1 audit, we could do this online. We don't need to actually interview people. Perhaps we need to talk to people for clarifications, but stage 1 audit, we're auditing mostly the documentation. Stage 2 audit, we're auditing things related to the processes, to people, and how that is managed inside the organization. So this is why we prefer to go to the customer premises to do this stage 2 audit. And of course, after this audit, nearly always we will have corrective actions. And the customers need to work on that. We review those. And this is an iterative process. And at the end of the day, if the customer addresses all of the corrective actions, we are in the position to issue a certification. So in terms of the preparing the customer for the audits and assessment, let me talk about what kind of documentation you need to have ready. And there are two categories. This is overall safety management, and the next one will be the project-oriented assessment management. So in terms of the overall safety management, we're talking about documents about the compliance of the organization with standards that support quality management, such as IATF 16949 in conjunction with ISO 9001. Now, at Omnex, we encourage very strongly that companies seeking functional safety certification have implemented ISO 9001 because it will help so much, okay? At least in terms of the processes that we're talking about. So if you're very serious about seeking functional safety certification, you should have already been certified with ISO 9001. Another aspect of this overall safety management is safety culture. And we're looking for evidence for rules and processes of safety culture at your organization. Also, in terms of management of safety anomalies regarding functional safety, we're looking for evidence of processes about this management of these anomalies. In terms of competence management, again, we refer back to ISO 9001, okay? Because that's the standard that talks about competence management in a much more detailed fashion. In terms of the quality management system, again, we're looking for evidence that a quality management system supports functional safety. Now, if you implement ISO 9001, at least the latest versions, that will provide that evidence because there is a clause in 9001 that it should support functional safety. So you should be all right with this particular requirement if you have implemented ISO 9001 and you're certified. Also, about project-independent tailoring of the safety life cycle. So this tailoring again is noted in ISO 9001. Okay. And lastly, an evidence submitting all of the requirements and considerations of Part 2, which is really most of it is listed up here, but this is not comprehensive. So basically, you need to take a look at all of the requirements, and that's listed in clause 5.4, by the way, and considerations. But again, I think what you have here is most of it, but not all. And lastly, what you need to have ready in terms of documentation is all work products. And these are the categories of the work products that they're talking about. There are 4 of them: organization-specific rules and processes, evidence of competence management, evidence of a quality management system, and identify safety anomaly reports, if applicable. Again, the recommendation is that be certified in ISO 9001 because that will go a long way of meeting most of these requirements right here. In terms of the project-dependent safety management, this is the project-oriented or product-oriented, if you will. What you need to have ready prior to a assessment is in this slide and also the next slide, okay? So as you could see, the list is a little bit bigger. We're talking about an appointment of the safety manager in terms of the roles and responsibilities for safety management. The performance of an impact analysis, okay? We need evidence that you have done that. The performance of an impact analysis of a reused element. The tailoring considerations for the safety activities. The progression in the life cycle about the assurance of information in the site phases, about the safety of the product. This one is a big one. The safety case is very important in ISO 26262. what we're looking for is the evidence of the development of the safety case. Safety case is something that is developed throughout the project. It's not something that you decide one day to do it. So we need evidence that you have a gradual development from the very beginning, when you develop the safety plan, all the way until you are ready for production, okay? So we're looking for that evidence. We talked about confirmation measures in great detail, so this is a big one. So we need to have evidence on the confirmation reviews, basically. And also in terms of the confirmation reviews, we need to have evidence of the appointed persons to perform the reviews. Again, we talked about these two several times already, the functional safety audit and assessment, which, as you could see, is specific for the project dependent. So here we need what you need to have ready is an evidence of that you have performed this, that you have done this, okay? And also evidence that you have performed or at least gather documentation for the assessment itself, so that the assessor will actually make its final decision whether or not your product or project is safe. And the last one is the readiness for the release of production. Okay. In terms of the work products for assessment, what you need to have ready is detailed in this clause 6.5, which is an impact analysis at the item level and also at the element level. You need to have the safety plan completed, safety case completed, the reports on the confirmation measures, and also a report on the release for production to ensure that the product is ready to be manufactured. And also all of the remaining work products referred in the safety plan. Okay, so these are explicit work products from this clause, but they're also implicit work products that it's noted in the safety plan, and that is in scope with the project. Again, we have mentioned this before, very important. These are the two options that we have for certifying for ISO 26262. We can certify the overall functional safety management system. We can audit that, and we can certify the audit of that, and also we can certify the assessment of the functional safety of your product or project. And as I mentioned before, the safety case is a big component of that. Probably one of the most important components of the assessment is the safety case. So in terms of the summary and recommendations, the automotive industry is increasingly requiring that processes and products be certified. Omnex has a new service, okay, called S3 that will provide the certification options for 26262. And in terms of 26262, we're talking about sorry about that. The certifying the audit of overall functional safety management and also certifying the assessment of your project or product. Now, customers need to be prepared in several ways for the certifications. My talk concentrating on how to be prepared in terms of the documentation of the prior activities that obviously has happened in the past, because at the end of the day, when you seek certification, that means that you have done, many activities regarding the implementation of ISO 26262, okay? So the organizations need to be prepared with this documentation. Omnex S3 has proven processes to achieve this. We did not talk in detail about that. We gave you an idea of how these processes work, but we concentrated mostly in what you need to have ready for certification. And as Brian also pointed out, Omnex has been doing certifications, some audits and assessments generally since 2010. So with that, at this point, I'm going to conclude my presentation and see whether or not you have any questions. Okay. So there is a question and answer screen. However, I don't see any questions.
Well, Juan, this is Brian. Tony Esteban made a comment that in version 4.0, the S in SPICE now stands for system instead of software. So I thanked her for that. Back to her, and I'll update my notes.
Oh, okay.
Should be system, not software. I think I said software, and I meant to say system. So I appreciate that comment, Tony. I don't see any other questions. I guess verbally we could take questions too. We've got 5 minutes if there's any questions. Juan, I will add your slide deck was very nicely put together and detailed, and I'm very relatable to a lot of the things I've worked on too in the past. We got a question. Brij Gupta, go ahead and ask. You should be able to take yourself off mute.
Unmute. Okay.
There
Am
you
I
go.
audible now? Okay,
Yes,
thank you very much.
yes, we hear you.
As a part of the automotive assessment since last over 26 years, from QS 9000 to ISO TS and then IATF, started with UL Underwriter Laboratories, then DQS, and then with the American System, the registrar. My question is that there are multiple certifications coming for the automotive supply chain. The companies I have seen in my last 25 years, they are not liking it. Now, if you see ISO IATF standard, there is a clear chapter and clause on safety. Why 26262 is required when already we are talking of safety as a separate clause for the products and parts which require safety considerations for the certified companies? Why another certification has come into the picture?
Juan, you should answer that.
Yeah, right. Actually, there are several companies offering certifications. Now, certification is a broad term. For instance, people that get certified for just taking special courses, and demonstrating proficiency, obviously. But Omnex at S3, we have decided to begin with 2 certifications. Now, I'm only talking about 26262, okay? I'm not talking about cybersecurity of ASPICE, that will be, we will have other webinars for that. So sticking to ISO 26262, we decided to concentrate on only 2. And that is the overall management system, which is part 2. I think part 2 is clause 5, I believe, yeah. And also the other one is the assessment, which is in part 2, clause 6, the project oriented. So in other words, we're issuing only 2 certifications, the process oriented certifications, if you will, where we examine all your processes. And the other one is your product or project. Okay. Now, we could offer many more. There are many companies that are offering other stuff, but we decided to stick to these 2. Okay.
Did that answer your question, Mr. Gupta?
No, partially you have answered. My first question would be, my secondary question would be, can Omenex or AIAG come out with a list of the components where functional safety is very vital? And it is required that 26262 shall be implemented, because currently I find people are just in the dark. They don't know whether functional safety is applicable to their part or not part. Most important as a guidance to supply chain shall be that these are the parts in the vehicle, these are the parts in the motorcycles where functional safety is important, and all the companies who manufacture those parts, they design and develop,
Okay.
they are clear about it.
Yeah, that's a great question. So my answer to that is that it depends on the project. And this is why I noted that in a couple of times, at least in my presentation, is that the key terms is within the scope of the project. And you're absolutely right. It does not mean that you need to implement every single part of the standard. No. this is why you, at the beginning of the project, you define the scope of the project, which is very critical, and then you go from there. And by the way, the scope of the project depends whether or not who you are in the supply chain. If you're an OEM, if you're a tier 1, if you're a tier 2, the scope is completely different. The good news is that you do not have to implement everything. It is implementing 26262 is a shared responsibility. Okay, and in fact, you need to. There is a document that is very formal that you need to make with your suppliers or customers, stating specifically what organization is responsible for what implementation or what part of the standard. So yeah, it is very complex. That's the bad news. It's very big. The good news is that you do not have to implement everything. You are not alone. And also depends on the scope of your project.
Okay, why I raised this question was that recently one of my clients, which is an American and a Chinese company, they told me, BB, are you doing 26262? And I audited that company last year for IATF 16949. The company is making underlay carpets and they are making carpets for good. I only had to tell them perhaps functional safety is not really related to your parts. You are making underlay carpet which goes into the vehicle and lies there. It doesn't do any much function. Similarly, there is a carpet. You put it in the boot, and functional safety perhaps is not applicable. Who is telling you to do 26262? That is why I raised this question. The excellent service can be done by Omnex if they bring out a list of the components which really require functional safety assessment.
Yeah, that's a good point. Nobody is forcing you to implement 26262. The industry itself is have decided that it's better for the entire industry if everybody implements 26262. So they're requiring, but it's not by law or regulation. It's a requirement by if you will, customs. It's a customary,
Right.
I guess, procedure that,
Right.
you know, the whole industry have decided to do that.
Let me interject because Philip had a similar question and we're running out of time, but that's pretty much demanded by all OEMs. You're not going to do business with an OEM like Stellantis or Ford or GM unless you have ISO 26262 safety as part of your offering as a tier 1. Okay. And then you had another question, Philip, that I couldn't answer, but I took the note down and I'll get back with you if you provide your email to the webinar host, Kelsey. It was on ASPICE. Let me see if I can go back to it and just read it. I'll read it for you quickly, Juan, because you can probably answer this because we're running out of time. Is SPICE ISO 15504 superseded by ISO 33000? And I couldn't answer that. I need to get with Greg Grusk on that.
Are they talking about ASPICE?
It just says SPICE ISO 15504. Is that superseded by ISO 33000?
I cannot answer that question because I'm not a specialist in ASPICE. I would really need to refer to Greg or Nikhil to that one. We'll get back.
Yes, we'll get back.
Yeah, this webinar is only about functional safety. So we will have another webinar for ASPICE later. So that would be a great question for the presenters of that webinar.
Good point. And Philip, I'm going to capture this with a screenshot and just make sure I track this down with Greg, and we can get back to you if you provide your email to Kelsey. We're out of time
and
now.
if you have any questions, you can reach out to me and I can connect you with our presenters. You can reach out to me at Crosby, CROSBYK @omnex.com. But that is all the time we have for today. Thank you everyone for joining our webinar and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you everyone. Appreciate your participation. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Bye now.